As the 2025 Formula One season approaches its critical midpoint, the rivalry between Red Bull and McLaren is no longer just about speed. It's now about strategy, timing, and politics. In the center of it all, Max Verstappen's pursuit of a fifth world title, a McLaren team dealing with the complexities of having two top-tier drivers, and a coming regulation change that could alter the championship storyline. Especially if it turns out the McLaren is still utilizing a cheating controversy, as Red Bull would like to call it. So, Red Bull has made its position clear: survive the early rounds, remain within striking distance, and wait for the tide to turn in Barcelona after McLaren will have to change big parts of its car. A constant message from the Red Bull camp at Suzuka was that all it needed to do was hang in long enough in the title fight for the flexi-wing clampdown, which would take place in round 9 at Barcelona in early June. Red Bull understands that Verstappen offers its best shot for a championship. He is in electric form and has probably not left a better result on the table this year, which means he's now just 1 point behind Lando Norris in the standings. But he needs assistance to stay in contention all season, let alone win. And Red Bull is confident that the regulation change that will take effect in June will have an influence, though it is unsure how much. So the first portion of the season will be all about remaining in the battle. Before Red Bull and Verstappen turned things around at Suzuka and won, their less than ideal start to the season was defined by the expectation of competing for both crowns this season. However, with Yuki Tsunoda's pointless debut, Red Bull remains a one-driver team in the championship, trailing McLaren by 50 points in the constructors' standings. And 2 titles aren't Red Bull's primary focus. Its messaging at Suzuka was all about supporting Max. Red Bull senior motorsport advisor Helmut Marko has said the whole team is focused on a 5th title for Max. Team boss Christian Horner confirmed, "Our priority is the Drivers' Championship," and also said at Suzuka, "Max is the lead driver and Yuki's job is to support him as best as he can to retain that Drivers' Championship." This underlines the reality that Verstappen is Red Bull's best hope, even if it will not officially abandon the constructors. While Red Bull focuses solely on Verstappen, there is another factor at play: upcoming rule revisions. These could be significant in Red Bull's season turnaround, but they also add an element of unpredictability. Christian Horner, Red Bull's team principal, is keeping an eye on the next FIA technical guideline on wing flexibility, which will be introduced at the Spanish Grand Prix. The governing body has already implemented in-season rule modifications this year, tightening limits on how far the rear wing slot gap can open, and another technical directive, TD018, was released prior to the season to crack down on so-called flexi wings. The FIA will implement more stringent static stress tests on front wings beginning in Barcelona in early June, following a fact-finding expedition last season to see whether different tests were required. While all teams were determined to be in compliance with the regulations last season, the permissible level of flex has been reduced from 15mm to 10mm after studying how front wings deformed at speed, with greater flexibility providing a higher level of performance. With stiffer tests on rear wings currently in place, front wings will be the next focus commencing in June, with stricter inspections required to comply by mid-season. Red Bull team principal Horner added that he is looking ahead to see if it affects anyone else on the grid, with Red Bull hoping to place themselves right in the fight following Max Verstappen's victory in Suzuka. "I think there's an unknown as to how it will affect the different cars," Horner explained to reporters in Japan when discussing the upcoming rule change. "You can see that the operating window of these cars is very, very narrow, and that front wing change is quite a significant one. So it will be interesting to see how and who it affects. There's no guarantees. We know areas of the car that we need to improve, and the whole team is very focused on them. But I think this championship is all going to be about maximizing your opportunities." In the first 3 races, which was a very close second in Melbourne, China Sprint, we were competitive in the first half, faded in the second half of that race. China Grand Prix, we had a competitive stint on the hard tyre there to P4, so there are a lot of positives to take, and we know if we can unlock some of the potential on this car, it puts us right in the fight. Speaking separately to Sky Sports F1, Horner mentioned the imminent regulatory change and noted how it could shake up the running order, considering that front wings play an important part in aerodynamic performance and the front of the race is currently tight. "I think what you have to remember is this championship is a marathon," he said. "And if last year taught us anything, it's that things can change very quickly. There's very little between the top 4 teams at the moment, and it's going to be about development. We have a big regulation change coming at race 9. You know, how is that going to affect the run of play? So it's all about maximizing your opportunities, and this weekend, we've done that." Meanwhile, McLaren faces its own unique dilemma. With Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in good form, the team has internal strategic difficulties that Red Bull does not have to worry about. Is having 2 good drivers a strength or a strategic liability? Red Bull is poised to exploit McLaren's main strength. Lando Norris raised a few eyebrows ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix when he claimed McLaren was having such an impact in Formula One this season because it was the only team with 2 excellent drivers at the time. With so little to choose between himself and Oscar Piastri in the win-loss column, other teams he mentioned appeared to be in worse shape due to more one-sided operations. Mercedes had a rookie on board in Kimi Antonelli. Ferrari had a delayed start since Lewis Hamilton needed time to get up to speed, and Red Bull was essentially a one-car squad due to the drama surrounding Liam Lawson's removal. However, when Max Verstappen won spectacularly at Suzuka, Norris learnt the hard way that having 2 drivers competing for the lead is not always ideal. After a race in which McLaren should have had all the cards to pull off a strategy pincer movement with Norris and Piastri against the leading Red Bull, the outside impression was that the squad was unable to roll the dice because it needed to prioritize being fair to both of its stars. Its decision to pit Oscar Piastri first for the undercut rather than its lead car, and then to simply have Norris follow Verstappen into the pits rather than attempt an overcut, indicated that McLaren prioritized equal treatment for its drivers, overthrowing everything it had at the common enemy. On Sunday night, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner said, "I guess the problem they have is they have 2 drivers fighting for the Drivers' Championship. The difficulty is they've made a bed where they're going to let them race, so that's the compromise that inevitably comes with that." The Red Bull camp is hoping that McLaren will be weaker due to needing to be fair on both sides of the garage, allowing Verstappen to come through the middle and beat both of them. It's an intriguing thought, but was McLaren's defeat in Japan truly due to fairness? Or was the game lost regardless of what the team did? Norris believed that there was a chance that he could have tried something different, as following Verstappen into the pits was always likely to result in him exiting them again, regardless of how close they were. "Maybe we could have tried a bit more with strategy," he reflected afterwards. "Overcut or undercut, we just boxed on the same lap for some reason, so some things we'll discuss." Andrea Stella, McLaren team boss, admitted after the race that the management had to consider the wider picture of both drivers while making strategic decisions. If the team had chosen to pit Norris first and try the undercut on Verstappen, he believes Piastri would have been exposed to Charles Leclerc and George Russell. "Pitting Lando would have meant that we could not pit Oscar, and this would have been a problem for Oscar," said Stella. "Oscar would have waited, which I think would have been a problem with the cars, especially Russell, that pitted and that we needed to cover." In the end, McLaren's decision to treat its drivers equally may benefit the constructors' standings. They currently have a 36-point advantage over Mercedes and nearly double Red Bull's total, but it may limit their potential to capture race wins from a carefully supported Verstappen. The question now is whether Red Bull's one-driver strategy and upcoming regulation change can reverse the trend. Or will McLaren's numerical advantage and consistent performance prevail in the long run? Barcelona is only more than a month away. Everything might change, or nothing will, and it is what makes this title fight so interesting. So, what do you think? Will Red Bull take advantage of McLaren's divided strategy and upcoming car changes due to the new technical directive? And will this not only help them in the Drivers' Championship, but perhaps also in the Constructors? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.